Hello and welcome back to what I'm calling the intuitive cooking series of videos. My name is Gabrielle and I blog on the website www.mypizzatoppings.com, and my hope for these videos is that all of you will become more creative and comfortable in the kitchen, and anybody who's learning to cook or afraid to cook or doesn't think they can cook will be able to cook without hesitation in their kitchen. You'll become more confident. So this series of videos is just for that. It's very informal. I'm going to cook some stuff. I'm going to show you how I do it without recipes and some of the strategies that I use. And if you didn't see the very first video where I talked about the 5 senses and the 5 tastes, you should go back and watch that one so you can know what I'm talking about. But that's basically what we're doing here. So I'm going to make some tomato sauce. And tomato sauce is really tricky, and it took me a long time to figure out how to get it right, and I still just mess around with it. I don't follow a recipe. I don't have one. I just mess around with it. But I have some ways of messing around with it that really help. So let's do that. So I always start by sauteing some onions. I find that onions are really imperative in tomato sauce. So a little bit of olive oil in here, and I'll saute up some of these onions, and then we'll go from there. So I just let these saute a little bit until they get about, until they get white, translucent. Gonna add some salt and pepper to this mixture. Okay, so I'm back just a minute later. I don't want you to have to watch me cook onions, but so here's how they look. They're translucent, and I just want to point out one thing, because while I had the video off, I heard these really start sizzling. And hearing is one of the senses that we don't use a lot in cooking, but maybe it's underused, because one of the things I noticed when I heard it was that the temperature was too high. And I think that that's just a good observation, that hearing, you actually can use hearing in cooking, even though it doesn't seem immediately apparent. It can come in handy. So once I have the onions in there and they're sauteed up, I just use a can of tomatoes. I don't have a favorite brand. Some people do have favorite brands. I recommend that you try different brands to see which ones you like. These are peeled plum tomatoes, Tudoroso. And once I get them in there, I use a potato masher to mash up the tomatoes. And then I'm going to put some garlic in. I never put the garlic in before because I'm nervous that it's going to burn, and there's nothing worse than the taste of burned garlic, so I usually put that in after. And once I get sort of those 3 main ingredients in, I'll start messing around with the other ones that we talked about. Got a little bit of tomato there on my computer. Okay, so the tomatoes are mashed up in there, and I'm probably going to put a little oregano in. I usually put either oregano or basil. I don't usually do both, but I encourage you to play around with those flavors. I'm just going to grate a little bit of the garlic in there. Some people use garlic press. I prefer a grater. I didn't have very much luck with the garlic press, so I prefer a grater. I'm going to put 3 cloves of garlic in there and then taste it and see what it tastes like, and then I'll decide whether I need more garlic or not. I won't be able to put less in, so remember always to put less first. You can always add more, but it's hard to take it away. Although there are solutions to problems sometimes when you put too much of something in there, and I'm not going to get into it today, but we'll explore some of those things, some of those strategies in future videos. You'll have to excuse my dogs. We really live here. I'm not in a studio. So you might hear barking dogs or people coming in the driveway. Okay, so once I grate that all in there, I'm gonna mix it up and then taste it. And the thing about tomato sauce is that a lot of things happen when it cooks. And this goes back to the chemistry of cooking, which I wish I knew more about. And if I can find a class, I'm probably going to try to take one because I find it fascinating. But tomatoes are one of those things that are really affected by cooking. And so cooking them for just a short time does something, and then cooking them for a long time does something. And I heard somewhere once that if you cook tomato sauce for a long time, that cinnamon can help to sort of make the tastes a little less bitter, maybe. So I've used that strategy sometimes. Sometimes I'm making a quick sauce and it's, I do it one way, and sometimes I'm cooking it down and I taste it all day and play around with it all day. So we'll do a little combination here of both. So I've mixed the garlic in there. So right now all we have in here are garlic, onions, and tomatoes. That's it. Nothing else. And I'm just going to taste it, get a sense of where it's at. Ooh, it's actually pretty perfect. It doesn't need any more garlic. It's perfect. So see, I think if I left it like this and took it off right now, it'd be fine. If I want to cook it down a little bit more, the tomatoes will go through more changes and I'll have to add other things. But geez, those 3 ingredients are perfect. I do want to cook this down a little bit because, let me just see if I can get you any closer. The consistency is a little bit loose. And so that's one reason that you might want to cook something down. So I am going to cook it for a little while longer. And then I'm going to taste it in a little while and see if I need to add anything else. I probably will add some pepper and some oregano to this. But right now I'm just going to cook it down, this basic thing, get it to the consistency that I want it. And then I'll come back and add some more stuff to it as needed. Okay, so I've been cooking this down. It's been about 20 minutes and it's thickening up. And I've been sort of tasting it as I go. I haven't put anything else in it yet, but that's what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to try some pepper. I generally like to have a little bit of pepper. I'm big on spice too. I'm probably going to cayenne it up a little bit. Now, this is going on, I'm making this for a pizza party, which that's what my website's all about. That's where it came from, was my enjoyment of making pizza. And I usually have parties where people bring ingredients and then I provide the dough and the sauce and the cheese, and we make pizza and put all kinds of various things on it. And that's why I've been able to come up with so many crazy pizza toppings. So I really want this sauce to be pretty thick. If it's too loose and you put it on pizza, then it gets soggy. So I'm just cooking it down. So I've been slowly cooking it. Like I said, it's been about 20 minutes, and I'm going to keep doing that. And as I do it, I'm going to add some stuff and taste it. Ooh. Oh, that's good. Spicy, though. Hopefully my friends can take the spice. A little bit spicy. I'm going to put some oregano in here. Like I said before, I usually do either oregano or basil, but not both. If I have fresh basil, if I've just been to the farmer's market and I have some fresh basil, usually I'll add that. It's really good. If not, then I just use what I've got for herbs. And this week I've got oregano. So I've put just a tiny bit of salt. It really didn't need too much salt. I put it in there anyway. I probably could have left it out. A little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, a little bit of cayenne, and some oregano. And then I'm just going to continue to let this cook down. And if the tomato changes, if it starts to get bitter or taste too sweet or too salty, then I'll use the methods that I talked about in that first video where I add a little bit of salt or add a little bit of sugar, or just to change the taste up. So you can put all of those things in in something like tomato sauce, and it will have that effect. So I'm just going to let this cook down. I think I'm just going to leave it. It tastes pretty good. So again, all I've put in here, I started with about a half of an onion, sauteed that up, and then added the tomatoes. Then I put in about 3 cloves of garlic to that 1 can of tomatoes, and that was perfect. That was just the right amount of garlic. And then I cooked it down a little bit. I added some salt, some pepper, some oregano, and that's it. Salt, pepper, oregano, and cayenne pepper. A little bit of cayenne pepper to spice it up. And that's totally to taste. But I like spice, so hopefully my friends this weekend will be able to handle it. Okay, thanks. All I'm doing is letting this cook down at this point. I've got it on 2 on my stove, so medium low, and I'm just letting it cook right down. And then I'm going to put it on pizza.